Yo, what's up? It's your boy Carcino here, and let's get into it. Now, many people say Lennox Lewis is one of the best heavyweights of all time. He's in the era where he came up and proved he was the best of his era. He went out on top, and Lennox is always going to be known as one of the best heavyweights of our era, period. And definitely for British boxing. And a lot of people wanted Frank Bruno to be that guy to win the championship, and Lennox was the first guy to bring it back in so many years. And once Frank Bruno won the title, he never really got that embrace. Lennox did, because they kind of feel like, well, he fought for Canada in the Olympics, and they didn't look at him fully as a Brit. When Frank Bruno won the title, everybody was over the moon, because Frank was considered to be one of them. Even though they're both black, Frank Bruno was considered to be fully one of them, and that rubbed Lennox the wrong way. Bruno would lose that title, of course, to Mike Tyson. But the bitterness Lennox fought with in all of his matches were based on these facts alone. Sorry about that. Something crazy just happened. Like I might have broke my tooth. How'd I do that? Well, anyhow, we continue. So, anyway, with that being done, did it just break in pieces? Feel like I'm in a real fight. Just talking about this beef. Now, Lennox Lewis have always proved one thing. He was formidable. As a fighter, as a champion, as everything. Lennox Lewis was that guy. But his ego, his attitude, have always rubbed people the wrong way. He never really had that fight with Riddick Bowe that people thought, who would have won if the two would have fought when they were at the height. Before Bowe, wasn't Riddick Bowe anymore. Then you looked at the situation where all of these things are happening. He's retired. He's commentating fights. And he's very, tough on fighters, and his arrogance, he couldn't step aside. His ego of, I still have to be the man, even though he's retired. That mentality has always settled in. Now, Anthony Joshua, since he was in the Olympics, Lennox came in, embraced him, and hugged when he was an amateur, and was kind of putting that arm around the kid to let him know, hey, you're on your way. All of these things here is, for you, and kind of putting his face on it, as being, okay, you're the heavyweight. I was the best European heavyweight ever. So this should be it. Everybody's like convinced that this should be it. Anthony Joshua come out and basically embrace Lennox. And early on he did. But it was clear Lennox wanted to be basically invited in and brought on as, as an advisor in this situation. And Rob McCracken and people in the camp, they didn't see it that way. They had what they had in motion, and they really didn't need Lennox. And I think by them moving in the direction they did, he was kind of bitter about it. I think he's a little bit bitter. So when Deontay Wilder was coming into prominence and anything about Joshua, he started to become very critical of Anthony Joshua. Anytime he had a fight, he would normally, point out the things that Joshua does wrong more than the things Joshua does right. And then when they would ask him in interviews about Anthony Joshua, he would never bite his tongue and says, "Oh, the kid's he's doing good. He's got a lot to learn, and definitely after he beat Klitschko the way he did, and he was basically saying, yeah, but look at the amount of abuse. He made some mistakes. The kid showed some heart. He got up. He did his, did what he had to do. But I would like to see him do this, this, and this, and this." This, once again, was spun out in the boxing media in the UK as Lennox is being, like a little critical. That those who love Lennox Lewis is like, no, he's really giving advice. So Joshua have to learn on these things. And yeah, they're right. So Joshua's camp got to the point where they was hearing all these little rumblings, but wouldn't respond to it. So because they wouldn't react and they couldn't get a reaction out of it, it was clear that Lennox was going to continue with the baiting. Then the PBC comes around in like 2014, 15, around that time, and when they're doing what they're doing in their process, things moved around a little differently back then. Things were put in perspective a little differently. Deontay Wilder became the big boxing star in the heavyweight division. They were pushing Deontay Wilder, and in this fight with Joshua. So Lennox, who's basically, UK's greatest heavyweight champion, the PBC kind of laced his pockets to come over and start basically promoting Deontay Wilder. And they're putting the arm around Lennox Lewis to bring him in for the interviews and perspectives because he's from the UK. So that makes Wilder looks more credible when you have Lennox Lewis backing you and he's from the UK and he's not really backing Joshua. That looks bad. So now he comes out before the fight. This is before the fight. Lennox was talking about all these other champions, but would not mention Anthony Joshua because Anthony Joshua blew him off in the Miller press conference when they were like, it's some guy, who was like champion for like 20 years ago, something like that. Him. Nah, I looked to American fighters. I didn't look to most of the UK fighters, like Tyson. I watched the welterweights fight. I didn't kind of deal with the heavyweights in Britain. That kind of rubbed some of the Britons the wrong way. That he said he went to America. He looked more towards the America fights like Tyson and Riddick Bowe. That was a blow to the UK boxing fans and definitely a blow to Lennox Lewis. So Lewis wasn't ever going to really mention his name. He did it to piss Lennox off because he knows how Lennox is. So it was just a matter of time before all of this was going to implode. So after he lost, you should have known everybody was gearing up and they were going to start coming. It was blood in the waters. So Lennox says, well, it was clear to me that that he wasn't there that night. Like, that wasn't him, and that he should probably fire his trainer, Rob McCracken. You know, like, because he definitely, well, I can't look at that fight and say that he was really prepared for the fight. I don't think he was fully prepared for the fight at all. And I think that stuff falls on the trainer. So now he's pushing what everybody else has been echoing around the gyms and British boxing, is that the trainer needs to go. And the fault goes on the trainer, Rob McCracken. So everybody's like, yeah, I knew it. I told you McCracken needs to go. So it's like throwing gas on the fire, which made it pretty funny. That was a very good strategic move by Lennox Lewis to blame that trainer. You know, and say, I think he should move on and probably fire, Rob McCracken, and move on from there. Because it was clear saying that Rob can, this is it. Now, to me, trainers could only do so much. So it's funny to me how people put so much onus on a trainer. Sometimes a lot of the onus has to fall on the fighter. You could teach two fighters the same thing. One can excel and one can't win a fight. It's why does everything has to fall directly on the trainer? And that's been like one of the biggest issues so far. So it just blows my mind every time I hear it, because it's like, that's dumb. It's really dumb. And when he came out and says to the world, Anthony Joshua, after this statement saying that he should fire Rob McCracken, he came out, Anthony Joshua, and said, Lennox Lewis is a clown. I do not respect him. Boom! That sent off a shockwave, and that was it. It's finally out in the public. They are not friends. They're not associates. Nothing. When he won his gold medal, Lennox tried to throw the arm around him and try to, be the face, but he's shown that Lennox was never going to be like in the camp or that guy, the advisor. He wanted to be the Freddie Roach type role in the camp, and that didn't happen. So now AJ came out and let him have it. He said, me and Lennox are not the same. My legacy is to sit back and enjoy the younger generation coming up and not to be involved. Just to appreciate what it takes to get there. Lennox isn't like that. Me and Lennox are not cut from the same cloth. Then they even they were talking about Lennox Lewis' legacy. He was like, man, Lennox left an impressive legacy. And he was like, so am I. I became heavyweight champion. I unified the division twice. Now my goal is to be a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. Once I achieve that, I could look to become an undisputed champion. So that was just that. So, I mean, I look at it differently. Now, that's where we are right now. It's gonna probably get worse, because this is a legitimate, like, they do not like each other. That is one official statement. Those two do not like each other. Now, with that being said, it's like this. Anthony Joshua has to realize one thing. You're not on the level of Lennox Lewis. Lennox is the old bitter champion who was greater than you as a fighter and all of these things. And it's true. He was greater. He was the greater fighter. There's no doubt about it. He has more boxing ability, more talent, more athleticism. He was just the smarter fighter. Now, here comes this young, brash, do it his way, and he's making way more money than Lennox ever made. Lennox made a lot of money, but this kid here is making some serious money. And Lennox paved that way for a British fighter to do that. And he should have been, willing to work with, Lennox Lewis rather than to shun him in some type of fashion. But Lennox also got to realize this is a young kid. He's trying. He's doing something that, no one else in his country was really doing at the time. It's not really big heavyweight boxing in the UK, with champions. They were very far, few and in between. Just like when you were coming up. And you know how it felt when you weren't embraced. When you won the championship. And how you felt that Britain really didn't even want to embrace you when you won it. Don't turn around and be that divisive old man. You're the older guy. You should take the high road. No one can question what you did in the ring. You had your time. It's now someone else's time. Let it be whatever happens to the kid. Let it be. You gave your opinion on his performance. You gave his opinion on how you think he should fight. Now it's time to move on. Let the kid be great or not. So we'll see. Because now it looks, if you look at it the whole way, Lennox is not going to favor out well in this situation. And what I mean by favoring out well, meaning that he's not going to get looked at as the guy. He's not going to get looked at as you're the older man, so they look at you as the bitter guy. You're hating on the young. It's never the other way around. That young guy's hating on the old man. He should have more respect. In this day and age, the older guy says something, he's a hater. So you got to have more, to just walk away from it. Don't even want to touch it. Let it be whatever it's going to be. That's what the attitude needs to be right now. When you're talking about Anthony Joshua and Lennox Lewis. So both sides are right, both sides are wrong. It's one of those situations. Because I see the right in both of their arguments. And I see the wrong in both of their arguments. And ultimately, the way it should end is Lennox just saying, you know what? I'm doing what they kind of did to me. So I should just walk away before it gets, to a level it shouldn't be at. So I'm out. I'm done. Don't forget to donate to the Cash App, man. Hit the Cash App up. I had to see what's wrong with my tooth. I think I cracked a piece of it. My back tooth. How did I do that when I'm not even eating food? Guess I'm getting old. I am getting old, baby. The name is Carcino on the Cash App. And definitely, if you want to hit me up in the Streamlab, you can do that also. It's been fun.